You guys, I swear, you guys are nuts.
Yeah.
No, it's dangerous. This is dangerous too.
Yeah.
But next thing you listen, you get this, get this, get this. I swear it's that easy. It goes on quick. No, I always get the warning, but I'm afraid if he falls, he'll blame me. No, I get nervous. I swear to God, get it. There, look over there.
There's an adage that says to never meet your heroes, lest they fall short of the magnanimous expectations our minds create from afar. This is not one of those stories.
Jimmy Chang. It's Jimmy. It's actually.
Oh, are you recording?
I am recording. I am.
Thought you were taking a selfie. What's up, guys?
This is actually Jimmy Chang, and I was going to do an interview and ask a whole bunch of very intelligent questions, but we just came from lunch where I met Jimmy for the first time and his wonderful family, and we had a great time just talking. I'm just gonna keep that part to myself. So
It was fun.
yeah,
Fun and yummy.
Sorry, you guys don't really get to have that part. That's just between us. So we're gonna ride, and Jimmy's going to take the XR with the Hoosier Slick, and I will take the Pint, which is currently named Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Another fun thing about living in New York City is that it's a bit more likely that someone you want to meet will eventually be in town to see the city. Now, since the early days of my channel, Jimmy Chang has been nothing but helpful and gracious, and when I reached out about doing a collaboration in the early days of me doing YouTube videos, he was more than happy to give me that early boost that helped me get my content out there. And finally, I had the opportunity to meet one of the earliest progenitors of grassroots one-wheel content on YouTube. Now, schedules, and life, and work obligations left me with less time than I would have liked to hang out and ride. But there was a great opportunity to meet the Chang gang and chill in Queens for a nice lunch. After which, we headed over to a great default riding spot along the water of Little Neck Bay. This is a stretch of water on the north side of the island that empties out into the ocean. It's a wonderful riding spot that runs right in between the expressway and the water. The view is nice, the air is fresh, and it continues on for a while with smooth pavement, providing a joyful riding experience. This is one of those places that you could really zen out if that's what you're looking for. So Jimmy and I rode on this path, pointing our cameras at each other and stopping for a photo with a nice view of the water and the bridge in the distance. Now this path leads to an area in Queens called Bayside and transitions to Fort Totten Park, an old Civil War memorial that attracts a fair amount of people. I love this place because it's not exactly what folks outside of New York imagine when they hear New York City or Queens, New York. It's really refreshing. On a more materialistic note, Jimmy ended up riding my Onewheel XR with a recently installed Hoosier Slick, specifically the Flight Fins Whisper 6. That's a great tire, and he seemed to like it as well. Tire change video is coming soon, by the way. I myself was riding the Pint, an increasingly frustrating board that, while full of charm, has so far managed to annoy me more than bring me joy. I apologize to those of you who really love the Pint, but it truly does stand in the shadow of the XR. I'm certain that many folks get caught up in either the novelty of it being the new Onewheel, as well as the visual aesthetics of the design. However, when it comes to the riding experience, the limitations of the Pint are apparent and unfortunate. It has a definite place in the one-wheel world, but it doesn't do much to ever step out of that very small place. Now, Jimmy isn't a speed rider, and it was obvious that he had to consciously slow down to let me catch up. Listen, I would love to post a long, fruitful interview of Jimmy where we go over the ins and outs of one-wheels, making YouTube content, and spill a bunch of tea about the goings-on in this relatively small ecosystem. And to be frank, we did talk a bit about those things off camera. But the most important takeaway from this meeting was that he and I are just people. We've got our own idiosyncrasies that form our personalities. Even though he and I make one-wheel videos, we have fairly different views on the content creation, riding philosophies, and how we go about navigating all of that. We've also got varying worldviews when it comes to more important things in life. And yet, we get along. We had a great time, enjoyed good food, good conversation. We talked about our families, movies, food, history, all of that. And that's what all of this should be for all of you, at least I hope. Finding ways to rediscover commonality, humanity, and parts of the world that would otherwise go unexperienced. Similarly to my video on the Central Park group ride, I think it's important to occasionally remind ourselves that the reason most of us bought this board in the first place was the experience, the feeling of floating across the pavement in the dirt. However, the experience doesn't end with what the ground feels like under your feet. It extends to what you end up seeing of the world and what journeys come from it all. Maybe this sort of sentiment means something to you, maybe it doesn't. However, it means something to me, and that's the real reason I even started making one-wheel videos in the first place. Speaking of which, I've got some fun content coming in the next week or so, including that EUC video I mentioned in a previous piece of content, as well as a tire change done with bare hands in about 13 minutes. And that's quite a sight to see, so make sure you don't miss it. I recently moved, so the wife and I are now homeowners, and that's an entirely new experience that I was not ready for, so please forgive the lapse in content. I'm getting back into it, so I'll be clearing out the video queue in the next week or so. So be well, ride safe, and most importantly, take care of yourself. Thanks again, Jimmy.
Was there anything you want to say to my significantly smaller audience, Jimmy?
Oh, Mario, good guy. He's awesome.
Thank you.
and we're here in New York in one of the boroughs in Queens, right?
Yes, sir.
You may have already mentioned that. But if you ever get the chance to come out, look up Mario. He knows good places to eat. We had a beautiful, beautiful lunch, ton of fun, and he's been gracious enough to let me ride on his Onewheel. And if you're not subscribed to his channel, make sure to subscribe. The little like button is right down there.
Ah,
Yeah,
he's experienced.
Like and subscribe.
Yes. Thank you, Jimmy. All right, so let's get riding.